Welcome to a masterclass, lighting masterclass by Roberto Schaefer. That bloke there hanging off the pole. As you can see, there's been some instructions given, which I'll ask Roberto about what he's doing and why he's doing what he's doing. So Roberto is famed cinematographer, AIC and ASC, so Italian Society of Cinematographers and American Society of Cinematographers, with a huge tranche of movies behind him. Finding Neverland, The Kite Runner, Quantum of Solace, and a bunch that's escaping me at the moment. But importantly, his last movie, which is Miles Ahead, which is, having seen it, is one of my favorite movies. And he's doing, he's going to be in conversation with David Höring today at 17:30 as a case study to take it apart and discuss how you do a I'm pushing it here, but a semi-improvisational movie. Can we just keep the chat down, please? Sorry. Okay, so do come in. Actually, you can get the core spot in the whole place. I mean, you can be anywhere you like. Okay. Yeah, sure. And now that I've got you, so have we got Roberto's microphone up? I'm ready to go.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I ask you, so I've given you a little introduction there, and we've posted the fact that you're going to be talking to David and myself later in the day about Miles Ahead. But here we are on a set. Can you tell us what you instructed only 10 minutes ago the crew to do and why? So what are you doing and what have you instructed them to do? Trust it.
That's what I'm afraid.
If he does that,
I have a pretty strong head cold still, so please bear with me. I cough a lot and it's embarrassing and I'm sorry. And I might lose my train of thought momentarily as the medicine kicks in and out. So what I decided to do here was treat this as a front porch of a house where people might sit and have a meal or something and then go back into their house. It goes back to a workshop I did in L'Aquila in Italy with Vittorio Storaro was teaching it, and he did a demonstration of working with the sun, natural light, and how you could do an effect of tramonto or sunset or sunrise using flags and not really using lights and trying to work with the natural elements. And knowing that a lot of people, including myself, have to do low-budget jobs where you don't always have all the tools you want, I'm trying to simulate here a shot that I did on a movie a few years ago called The Paperboy, which I hope everybody saw. It's a fabulous movie. It's one of my favorites with Miles Ahead. Again, it was another $9–10 million movie, one of those small things that are gems that you're proud of, where I had to do a scene. It got cut out, unfortunately, because of the final run of the film. But it starts off nighttime on a front porch, house light on. The actors are sitting on a bench having a beer. They get up, they finish their conversation, they go put the beer bottle down on a little table under the porch light, go inside, and then the sun rises across the front of the house, and they come back out. One of them comes back out dressed differently with the house cleaner onto the front porch. And we did it all in real time. So what I'm trying to do is simulate that here, starting off with a evening night scene, or early morning before sunrise, and then the sun rising on the scene, and seeing how you can balance the light for both and how it can work. And hopefully it'll work. Then that's basically what I instructed the lighting crew to put the sun up there. I'm not sure where it's going to end up. It's probably going to end up over here. maybe not as high as we'd like it, but a low sunrise is nice, raking across the fields. A reveal. At the same time, there'll be a sunlight coming in, similar angle through the side window there, which you can't see, but there is a window behind here. Hopefully, they'll be able to coordinate the movement of the two flags. And everything else will remain the same. We'll find an end point, final frame for the move. Mark that. We'll pull back, find the start of the move. Then they'll lay track in the meantime to complete it and put the dolly on and do some rehearsals. And the actors will probably be sitting here to begin with, have one of them go walk inside while the others sit here and wait, and then the sun rises, and then they have their conversation or whatever. The dialogue is not important here. The motivation is really not that important here. It's just have a little movement and change from night to morning. In the meantime, while they're doing all that stuff, and we can find the points here, then I'm going to talk to you all about some things that I think are really important to talk about when shooting with any digital camera. Procedural things that are really, and tools that are kind of necessary to use properly, because you can be fooled. What you see is what you get theory is not 100% foolproof. You have to know what you're seeing on and what you're getting on, how your cameras are set, how the monitors are set, all that kind of stuff. So I'll go through all that stuff in a couple of minutes. But we're going to find first a final frame, then we'll find a start frame, and then you guys can lay the track and do all that stuff while I talk about everything else.
Would you like a clear 5 minutes of, concentration? Or are you up for?
No, they're working. Let's get the actors around the table. I'll find a position, and then we'll find our final frame. Let's start off with 4. We can always ask one to go to the kitchen. Hands, I have a cold. So right now, Michael, can you lose your very white jacket? Yes, thank you. Yours was a little yesterday, what you were wearing with that white back was also a little tricky. I saw how Billy was lighting it. It was a little tough because you were already glowing, but then with that white on the back. So that's something I would talk to wardrobe about, making sure that the costumes work with. Do you have something a little darker you could put on? That would be great. How about no hat? No hat. Let's start off with no hat. Oh, one thing I didn't mention, I do have a green screen out the window there. Now, I did say this was a front porch. We can say that it's a front porch with a door going out to the field. There was just to show you lighting a green screen and the balance and how to do it in a minor way in case you run across it that you need to do it. It doesn't have to be there in this shot, and I don't think we have anything to put into it, but it's just to show and talk a little bit about green screen work, because it comes up a lot in the lowest budget productions. Find, also, I come from the school of operating, so generally I like to find on the camera myself the start points, the end points, and then let the crew work it out from there. So, if you're okay with that? Yeah.
There's clearly some, I'll just shout, it's easier. There's clearly some radio interference. I was going to give him this, so that's why you couldn't hear, because they pulled that down. Are we on? Yeah. And I will feed him it when he's going to talk. What he was saying, if you didn't catch it, is that he likes to find the shot himself before handing it over to operators and all the rest of it. There's an argument, isn't there, about whether you operate and light, or whether you can hand it off, depending on the size of the shoot and all the rest of it. We'll get into that. We'll get into that conversation.
shouldn't go down until you found your start and your end positions. Then you mark them, and then you put the track between them. Otherwise, you trip all over yourself. Second guess, and have to move the track 7 times.
Let me just check something. So
Is this working?
is this
Is
time
my
mic
mic working?
gone down? Do we need a new one?
I'll work
Need a
with this
new one. Yeah, it's gone
Let
down.
me use this. Can we lose this? I know it was giving troubles yesterday also. You got some gaffer tape? You have just gaffer.
Okay, yeah, yeah. But not to my
Right to
beard,
there?
so yes.
No, no, to me, like this. So I was saying about the track is that I don't put track down until we've got our start and our end points, because otherwise you end up, and sometimes you end up doing it anyhow, but moving it 3, 4, 5 times until it's right. So it's better to look through the camera, find your position, see the whole move, and then put the track down correctly the first time.
I'll pass it to you back. Yeah, I'll be your mic.
I can see already, I'm going to need to, there's a flag that I see out the window there, which we don't want to see. I'm not sure what's behind it, but if nothing else, turn it so the flag is towards us and not the stand. See, this flag there? Okay. Mark this as our end position. And now let's pull back on a diagonal. So you can mark this and then lay the track straight in. Okay, let's put this, I like it lower, this is a very high lamp. Maybe you can put it on the box in the foreground. And more over here, we'll set it to camera afterwards.
As long as we don't break it, because it's your hotel.
That's not mine though.
No.
Mine was lower, mine was a nicer lamp.
I didn't have your hotel number there.
I can give you my key right now if you want it.
If you want your watch, you can go and get yours.
Yeah, the other one's actually a much better lamp if they let you take it. It should actually be even. Let's put the box down even lower. Next thing down. So I know yesterday, I'm not sure how many people were here yesterday and watched the other lighting demonstrations and talk about monitors and HD and digital and how wonderful it is because you see what you're going to get and all that. But several things to consider. I don't trust these monitors unless they are perfectly calibrated by my digital imaging technician, the DIT. They have to be calibrated properly. I also do not work with OLED monitors, which these are, because the quality of the black is so nice on this. It's so deep and crushed. It never goes out that same way through broadcast or satellite or cable or even in a DCP in a theatrical projection, because they just don't have that kind of black in the systems. So you see a beautiful image there, and then you get into do your final work on it, and it never looks the same. So I don't trust those. They look great for now for display for us to look at, but it's not really the way it's going to be. So if you want to work off a monitor that's calibrated. You'll find a monitor like this on set often, small, like an on-set type monitor, 7-inch, 9-inch, whatever. On almost every set, there's a focus puller has his monitor, because they don't always work on camera in old school fashion. Sometimes they work off a monitor when they have to, because the fall off of focus in digital is much quicker due to the fact that the pixels are not moving, they stay in the same place, and there's a harsher contrast. So that's why it seems perceptibly sharper, though it's not really sharper than 35 millimeter. So the focus drops off quicker. So in real precise focus, you'll see focus pullers working off a monitor. Most of the monitors will say on the monitor with a piece of tape, the focus puller will say, "Do not judge image by this monitor." And it's something important. Do not judge image quality by the viewfinder. Do not judge image quality by the onboard monitor. The only proper way to judge what you're getting is from a calibrated monitor that hopefully you have next to the set in a darkened area, which is the proper way to look at it. So there are tools that I use to get me to the point of where I'd be ready to shoot. I've come to rely a little bit on my iPad, which has some programs which you can use, which I use all the time in preparation for what I would do. Normally, if I'm looking to set something up like this and I don't have the camera with me or the proper lenses, or I'm on a scout, I don't know how many people are familiar with some of these programs called Artemis. Does anybody know Artemis program? Works on the iPhone or Android phone, and on at least the iPad. I'm not sure on the Android pads it should work too. The Artemis basically looks like this, where you can program in any existing camera, 35 millimeter, HD, 16 millimeter, all the different, almost every camera that's made or that has been made into here. You can program in specific lenses, Cooks, Baltars, Primos, whatever lens. You can also custom lens. And then you use it as a viewfinder to do your setup to find your framing. So I have it set right now for Alexa 2K. I didn't set it up for this camera. This is from the last job I just did. Alexa 2K in 239 crop mode. And I have on here Zeiss Super Speed lenses. So this would be a Zeiss 25 mil Super Speed in crop mode. So I would find my frame, and then you can take a picture of it, and then it comes up in a folder. In that folder, it comes up here. You can look at it. It gives you all of the information, the camera, the lens, the location you're in by latitude and longitude, the date. You can preset the date for the shoot day, or for if you're going to come back in 3 months and shoot there. So it gives you sunrise and sunset. It gives you all that information, tilt angle of the camera, all that information to come back to, which is really a great help. You can make, I wouldn't say storyboards, but shooting boards from it to give you an idea of, and let the crew, and the director always asks me to send them these, and often the producer does too, and the production designer, to get an idea of what we're really going to be shooting. Of course, you can change when you get there, but it's a good guide. So that's one program I use a lot. And then another one I use, because I find that I'm oftentimes get to a location and I don't know that I'm going to be scouting. I just happen to be somewhere and I want to find out what the light levels are in this particular location. So there's this program called Cinemeter 3, which you calibrate to your light meter, your trusted calibrated light meter, and to your color meter. And it then gives you extremely accurate readings. If you put this Luxie ball on, which costs $29.95 US, as does the program. But once it's calibrated and it's set, it tells you, you can set everything, your ASA settings, if you have NDs in, I don't know why there's an ND in there, shouldn't be. Your frame rate, shutter angle, and then it gives you your basic, your light meter reading. So I've got a 2.8 right here at 800 ASA with a 180 shutter. I'm used to shooting 180 because that's the American standard. I guess here it would be a 172.8, so I set that, and now it's 172.8. This gives me an accurate waveform monitor. That's another tool that I like to use when I'm shooting besides a calibrated DIT monitor is waveform and false color. I'll get to the false color in a minute. But the waveform I trust for, it gives you the bottom and the top of your usable spectrum that you're seeing on recorded, and it will show you where you're either clipping your highlights or where you're burying your shadows, so you'll know on what you're shooting on your raw data, or if you're shooting ProRes or if you're shooting log C or whatever format, you know what you have technically on the file to then go back and pull back up in your coloring session. You don't usually get all 14 stops of any camera for the display. It's usually about 8 stops or something, but at least you know what's there, that you can pull it back or when you can't pull it back. It also has the false color built into this. You can change it to the front camera. So if you can see that, that's the set. And that, with that at the 2.8 setting, that shows me what the false color tells me what's going to be. Where it's red, that means there's nothing there. It's overexposed. If it's purple, it means it's black. And then green is an average 18% gray card. So it's a good thing to use as a tool to just help you along with what you're doing on set. I tend to use it more as an incident meter like this, but it's a good tool to use. And because this Luxie ball also fits onto the smartphone, I always have it with me. So if I go somewhere and I don't even expect to be scouting or doing that, or I find a location that I really like and I'm going to recommend it to somebody later, I want to see what the ambient light is in there, it gives me an accurate reading. And it also, besides that, it gives me the Kelvin color temperature of the light and my green or magenta shift. So right now I'm reading 2400 Kelvin, and any color meter pretty much these days is always within 400 degrees, more or less, once it's calibrated. I've never been on a set where I've had a color meter and my electric has had a color meter and they both matched perfectly. And if you're doing LEDs or plasma lights or new sources, standard color meters like the Minolta 3-color meter don't really read them accurately, so you need the new. There's a Sekonic that does it, but this also reads correctly. So I would want to calibrate this to the Sekonic meter so it's correct. So it's just tools that I think will help you get through the unknown and work better and more informed of what kind of images you're going to get. That's aside from the creative side of everything.
We think about 5 minutes before that's ready.
Okay. I hope we can get the flag up there that high.
They're rigging that at the moment.
Okay.
I'm just going up to check. I'm leaving.
It's a little higher than I wanted. I thought they couldn't do it off of here?
I'll see what.
It would be better here. And the flag can't do that. The flag's got to be vertical. That's why I wanted it here on pulleys, so you can go straight up and down. It's got to be a straight up and down.
Yeah.
Were we not able to mount it onto that pole? It's better. It's a lower angle.
Oh, the actual lamp?
Yeah, the lamp on there.
This one here.
Okay. Okay.
That's too high, and to get the flag to do the proper, and the flag, yeah.
Because in fact, actually, it's just easy to drop the flag over from, you just have to say, guy above you and down.
Or you have 2 people right here, and you can do it like that, yeah. Okay. Okay, let's see. It's 40 watt, okay. So let me know when the dolly's all set and ready and leveled and all ready to look at.
Just to say to people that those tools that you were talking about, any one of those tools could have cost $1,000 a couple of 5
Well,
years ago.
yes, that's true, but you still need to have access to a color meter to calibrate this and access to a proper light meter to calibrate it. Because if you don't calibrate it, it means nothing. Because the built-in in these devices are in their own world. They don't relate to ours really properly. But you can always borrow a color meter from somebody or rent one for a day. And most people will tend to have a Spectra or a Minolta still meter. So I like to use it, even when I'm shooting digital, I like to use it for my ratios. So at least I know more or less what I'm going to be getting. This light, let's see. This isn't ready yet, I don't believe. I'm not gonna start measuring things, everything until everything's set here. Okay, that's good. That's a little hot. Okay, so he's got the color in there. Let me see, height-wise. Yeah, this is like an 8.5. We're gonna need to knock this way down.
Jeff's on his way.
Okay, I don't know if that ballast has a dimmer built into it. It'd be one stop probably, but we need to probably put like 4 stops of ND or wire. The green screen's going to need to be a little bit smoother lit. It's a little hot on the right side, as you can see here. So to get a good green screen, important if you are doing any kind of visual effects, green screen or blue screen or any kind of thing like that, is to talk to the, hold on a second. Talk to the visual effects people who are going to be doing the work and ask them how they like their green screen or blue screen lit. It varies, depends on the machinery they're using and their tastes, but some want the green screen at the key exposure stop, some want it hotter, some want it darker. So I've found most of the time recently people want it between a half and 1 stop below exposure, so it's a little bit crushed. So that's something always important to check out before you do it. Let's see what else. So we're going to have a practical house light on in there that will stay on. Sunlight and sunlight timed together for the sunrise. And our actors will find something to talk about. And somebody will get up and I think we'll have it start with 2 of you in the house. You 2 can be in the house. You'll come out and meet them, sit and have a little chat, and as the sun starts to rise, you 2 can look at each other and go inside and start preparing breakfast, and you can sit out here and wait for breakfast. Okay? Go in here for a second. I'm just going to go and take a reading right now off the green screen just to get an idea of what it's telling me. And it tells me it's 136 green, which is quite strong, which is right. It's uncalibrated this direction, that other camera, so I'm not really reading the color temperature off it. I'm just going for exposure. Okay, we need to even this out a bit. If you want to put a net on this side, just to take this down and bring this up. Or we can angle this out. If we do this, would help. Maybe clip it up here for that. It's not going to be a perfect green screen, and we're not trying to do that today, perfect, but just to give you an idea of how it would work. Let's pull back to the number 1 position.
When you're ready, Sam.
this is not going to be too great here. Let me see if I put this. Let's try something different with this lamp. Stop right now. Are we wide open? To it. Let's go. Let's go to wide open. Just see. Oops, sorry.
Okay.
Do we by chance have a frosted bulb for this? A frosted bulb as opposed to a clear bulb? Oh, that is frosted. Oh, okay.
We could put some frost around it.
Well, I still need to have the output from it. So, and is that up at 100% right now?
That one is
It is. Okay. Oh, do you have a bigger bulb? Yeah, like 100 watt. Yeah. Great.
That's an ES, isn't it? Okay.
So once we have this light rigged and everything, I'm going to have the electrics reposition the light coming through the window a little bit. It'll go lamp right a little bit, just to try to get a little more light onto our talent here. Although what we could do might make it better is move. Why don't we do that? Let's move the whole thing back, guys. Let's move the table, the whole setup back towards the green screen about a foot and a half. Yeah, let's take a look at that. If you can take, you're on the cable there. And yeah, you're on the dimmer or the plug. There you go. Okay. Now is that quarter CTS? It's what? Quarter CTO? Let's go full. Let's make that full. $100. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll start to balance things as everything is in position. Now, an important thing to do, especially with the green screen, and this is working well for it, the set-wise, is that any light that we add to the set doesn't spill onto the green screen and pollute it and make it harder to pull the mat from it. Can you pull back a little farther? Yep. Yeah, that was the original start mark. I think you can even go back a little farther as long as you're not shooting off the top of the set. Oh, just another. Oh, you're up. That's the run-up. Okay. All right, this will be fine then. That's okay. If you want to just rehearse some moves and timing and feel what's in, that way you can get some rehearsal with the wheels. See that? I said they come in for breakfast and they get breakfast. Look at that. Does anybody here want to join them for breakfast? I'm not sure if everybody had their breakfast already. Now, if you can feel your light there from the window, you want to, that's right on your eye there. I'm going to probably move this lamp a little bit anyhow and come over. Yeah. It's, yeah, it hits you better. Hits you better there. Yeah. Okay. So watch her head as you're pulling back. Tilt up, you don't want to cut her. When you're coming back, yeah, you want to keep her head from in to out. Okay. I put it down. Mm-hmm. Yes, please. Here it is. So right now I'm getting, when the sun is up, as it is now without the extra gel on there, I was getting almost a 4-stop. So what I'm going to be doing is lighting to expose for the sunrise, and then set my nighttime lighting so that it exposes properly to go with that sunrise. So I don't have to do an iris pull when we're doing the shot. And like most film sets, when you first come in on a day where there's really been no prep, it's kind of boring standing around and watching. And fortunately, there's only 2 producers in the house, I think, so I'm not feeling too sweaty yet. But I'm sure I'm going to feel the heat pretty soon. Right, Charlotte? Yeah, yeah. Take as many practice runs as you need. Then we'll see how it works with the actors and if we need to speed it up or time it a little bit better. And I like to keep them, yeah, we want to see a bit of the window on the right there as you pull back, but you can start panning left a little to include more of the there, and then let's see when you start to run off. Probably come back, pan right again a little bit. Let's find the actual end frame. Pan left more. I like seeing that little ladder on the left even more. Yeah, right to, not quite there, about there. Yeah, you can use that as your end mark. So is the full CTO on both? Okay. So I'm reading right now, 284 from the main sunlight. When I go back to the deeper area here in the light, it goes up to a 4. My tungsten light in here is a 1.4, almost a 2. It's pretty much well, take the sunlight off it. It's a 1.4. So we've got a 2-stop difference. And let's see, this light. Let's physically lower the 1200 in there a little bit. Keep coming down. Like around there. Let's try that. And that's a 2.8.5. From there, that's pretty good. 2.8, 2.8, and let's take 1 stop of neutral out of that. I don't know if you want to go up to 100% on the dimmer, see if that does it. And you can see, even to the eye, that this glass, plastic that Billy was talking about, this window, it's adding a lot of green to the image, to her skin. So that will probably have to be taken out in post later. glass tends to do that, and this plastic is has a lot of color in it. I kind of like the diffusion of it. Yeah, it softens it up a little bit. 100%. Okay, let's start taking it down. Pardon my arm. Keep coming down. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. A little more. Keep going. Let's try that. Try that. Let's see. And let's... Is that one on a dimmer also? The other one? Does that ballast have a dimmer? Let's take that down about 10 or 15%. Okay. Hold on with the flag. Just lower the flag for a minute. Okay. Actually, I think that's going to be okay with that, whatever that's set it up there. I don't know if you moved it or not, but let's try it where it's set. So the idea is you're going to be covering that completely, and that one too, simultaneously lowering them really slowly. It's as the sun is rising over the hill. Really slowly. So the way I would do it, if I could in a bigger space, would be to have a bigger fixture with a bigger eye on it, and then have a larger frame that you can tilt to flop down to give you that slow reveal. It's a little bit harder on a stand like this, but just for demonstration purposes, I think it should work okay. So now, if that flag is, okay, and is there one in there ready? Once those are ready, let's put them up so it's nighttime, and then we can balance our lights for night. Let's put a 2/8 and a third on the camera. Now, what are we shooting? Are we shooting RAW? Are we shooting ProRes? Are we shooting ProRes? Is the camera set for 2K? And is it quad 4, log C? So we're recording log C. The output is 709?
Log C to be honest.
Log C. Okay. So one thing to be careful with is also knowing that the output from these cameras, Alexas, all of them, pretty much, unless somebody's come out with something recently that I don't remember, the video output is not the same as what you're recording. The video output to the monitors is usually 1080 HD. It's not full 4K. It's not 2K if you're recording 2K. It's not UHD if you're recording. It's 1080. So the signal is not as good. The quality is not as good and not quite as crisp. You're not going to really get exactly what you think you're getting if you're shooting, say, with a Varicam or a Red or another camera at 4K, or the Arri either at 2K or UHD on the Amira, you're still going to be getting a 1080 image on your monitors. So that's something just to know that you're going to have a higher quality image on your recorded. And we shoot here, what, 25 frames, that's right. Yes. 25 at 180. Oh, okay. I set mine to 172.8, so I'll go back to 20, and I had 24, so I'll go 25 at 180. Those are the things that I have to remember when you jump countries. Always know what your cycles are and your frame rates and everything, because it can... I had a friend who had a beautiful piece of equipment with a custom camera and came over to LA and did an amazing shot with a balloon that he built, a blimp. But he hadn't tested the camera in LA yet, and they shot this incredible, wonderful scene in the movie, and it all had to be scrapped because it was flickering because his crystal was at 25 and we shoot 24. And it was with HMI light, so everything was messed up. So it's things to be. So we shoot in the States for almost everything on digital. We shoot 23:976 frames. We don't even shoot 24. So it's all the wonderful world of technology. Okay, now I'm at 25 and 180. And we're set at 800. Okay, so now they say you can push to 1280 or 1600 or 3200 on a lot of cameras. What the noise floor is depends on how the color system is set up in the camera. But one thing to know is that if you're shooting a low light scene, such as a night exterior, and you want detail in the shadows, if you go to 1280 or 1600 ASA, you're actually losing detail in the shadows. What you're doing is shifting your mid-gray point up and down when you change the ASA. And especially if you're shooting log C, it's baked in, as the expression goes, it's built into the metadata, into your file. It's not changeable later. If you're shooting raw, I'll get to that in a minute. But so when you shoot 1280 or 1600 or 3200, you're compressing the shadows and the black, so there's less detail there. So actually, what you'd like to do if you could when you're shooting a low light dark scene is shoot at 400 if you want detail in the shadows. The converse of that is when you go exterior, day exterior, and you want to have, not have to stop down quite as far, you can go to 400 or you can go to 200, but then your highlights are going to burn out faster. So one of the problems that happens is when you're balancing a dark scene with a bright highlight, if you go to 1280, your shadows are saved. I mean, your shadows are crushed and lost, but it helps you with your highlights. So if you have bright images like the candles the other day on Billy's scene, they were tending to burn out at the top. If he had gone to 800 instead of the 1280, when they pushed it, he showed the difference. It actually looked better at 1280 for the candle itself because it doesn't burn out as much. But there's just a lot of balance to do, and sometimes you just need to go to the higher ASAs. Now, my personal preference these days, if I know I have to shoot scenes with a lot of night exterior or dark skin or just dark interiors, and I don't have a lot of facility to light, or I'm shooting where I have to use a lot of available light in a city that's not super bright, but I still need to shoot it, like, I don't know, if you see miles ahead, there's some stuff I shot there which the camera wasn't ready yet, but the new Panasonic Varicam, I don't know if anybody has seen it yet, the Varicam has dual ASA ratings, native, 800 and 5,000. 5,000 gives you an effective 2.5 stops extra without getting any more noisy or grainy, or it looks almost exactly like the 800. You can cut them right next to each other. You can shift from 800 to 5,000. The noise difference is so minor, you only see it on a scope. So I use that camera a lot these days because I'm shooting a lot of low light stuff, and it just saves you when, if you don't want to be at a 1.3 on your widest lens, widest open, if you want to be at a 2.8 or 2.84, the 5,000 ASA really can save you, and it's a really nice feature. No other cameras have that yet. You can push these, but you get more noise when you push the ASA. And the thing with the 5,000 native is you don't have that same issue with losing your shadow into the compressing it because it's a native stop.
Can I ask a question? So, do you want a drink?
Yes.
So, you're getting some hardcore information here. Are there any questions that might want to go up or down the scale in terms of technicalities or aesthetics or anything? Is everybody on course, or do you want to ask? Got one up here. Is that okay, Roberto? He'll come back when the So ask a question. You're getting a question coming in, Roberto.
Hi. You mentioned that you shouldn't spill the light onto the green screen earlier. Why is that? Why can't you put it as cleanly if it was?
You try to light the green screen as evenly as possible to the stop that matches or is slightly under or slightly over, depending on the VFX people, to your exposure, your camera exposure. And if they're pulling a matte from it, if the exposure shifts or changes, the matte won't be as clean. And especially if you have light, like here I have HMI light with a full CTO on it, it's not going to be exactly the same color as the Kinoflow that's lighting the green screen. So if you get a color shift in it too, that throws them off in the post, and they might end up having to rotoscope it all, and then you get a lot of curse words thrown at you, and producers start saying, well, why are we paying thousands of dollars an hour more? You gave us a bad green screen. So you try to keep it as clean and unaffected as possible. Does anybody else have any questions so far?
Hi, yes, we see that you're meticulously lighting this. I just wanted to ask a global question. If this was film, would you be lighting in the same way? I know you take a lot of time. Would your lighting sources be the same? Would they be smaller? Because I'm trying to debunk the film versus digital myth about being cheaper. And then I had another question. If someone was not as knowledgeable as you and as technical as you, who would they, because it's a bit daunting, you know, that you have to know all that stuff and the levels and the ratios and things like that, where would you turn to? Or do you, like the other guys at Camera Image, they say, I just light off the monitor.
Basically, I would light the same for film or for digital. I like shooting film. I did a film called Machine Gun Preacher. Not a great film, but it has its moments. We shot Super 16 anamorphic, and I shot a lot of night stuff with just a, what is it, that's that big light, the 100,000 watt, what's it, the soft sun, yeah. It was like 150 yards away on a bulldozer up in the air in South Africa, lighting a night scene. It was the moon over this village with no other light sources except for some fires. And I shot it with the 500 ASA film, 7219, and pushed it to stop. And it had a lovely texture to it. It was beautiful. So it was 1000 ASA I was basically shooting. Comparable to the 800 here. Yes, these tend to have a little bit more in the shadow area, but I tend to like to try to light the same. Now, if I'm getting to the situation I described, like with the 5000 ASA on the Vericam, then that would be a tough thing to replicate exactly on film. As far as the cost goes, no, I'm not using really bigger lights or more lights when I'm shooting film versus digital, unless I'm shooting something where I can use that 5000 ASA, and then I'll work with a lot smaller fixtures and things. But it's not just the amount of light it puts out, but like I said there, if this was doing it really properly, I would have a big eye tenor or some bigger fixture with a bigger Fresnel or a bigger face on it that gives a bigger, softer, or a sharper, if you want to go for sharper sunlight, a bigger source coming in. So it's still going to be the same cost-wise, more or less. You can get away with the 5000 ASA with a lot smaller fixtures and stuff, and these days sometimes you have to just for speed, and production doesn't want to spend the money on everything else. As far as, but I mean, still for me, if you do the numbers on digital versus film, the actual cameras and the files and all of that, in the end, it's pretty much of a wash between them. And the other question you said was, oh, who would I turn to? Okay, since the day I started, I try to hire gaffers who know more than I do, who've worked with people who are better than I am. And I mean, my first gaffer I worked with up in Canada, he was on Gunga Din as a juicer, but he grew up through he's from England originally. Dennis Brock is his name. An excellent guy, knows so much. Then I worked with the gaffer Colin Campbell, who worked with Vilmo Sigmund for 15 years. Every gaffer I've worked with knows more than I do. I have worked with other DPs, and that's the thing. I sort of never really worked with other DPs except for one, really. I did work with Tony Imi, but I was a Steadicam operator, so I didn't have quite the chance. And with Tonino Delacoli, I was an extra on a film, so I got to watch him every day for 10 days. But I didn't do the apprenticeship or get to work on somebody else's crew and really watch or come up through an electric department. So I have my own ways of doing things, but I try to learn and lean on them. Same thing with key grips. I'll say, I really want this set up like this and do that, and then let's say, well, let me do it. I have a better way of doing it. I'll get you to the same place. focus pullers, camera assistants, I really like to let them, and the DIT, when I'm doing digital, let them deal with the camera and set it properly and make sure it's all right. I'll try to put my eye on it to make sure that somebody doesn't make a mistake, because there are oversights, like something I was doing the other day. The camera was set wrong, and we shot the first setup, and we just had to live with it because it was a freebie, no-budget film. But yeah, it just turned to the higher work with people around you who know more and have more experience. And you don't always have to do exactly what they say. You can guide them, let them know what you want, the look that you want, the feel, the exposure, and all that, but let them use all their expertise. And a DIT on a shoot is a great help, somebody who knows what they're doing. There are DITs who I wouldn't hire or look at a second time. There are other ones who are really great and knowledgeable and will help and work with you and, you know, show you when you have problems. How do you learn all the cameras when they're changing every year? I'd say learn all the cameras when they're changing every 6 months or every 4 weeks or whatever. It's almost impossible. That's why camera assistants, it's their job to learn all the cameras, and it's a drag. It really is. I mean, I go to every show that I can, like the NAB show in Las Vegas and Cinegear in LA when equipment comes out. There's Cinec in Munich, and IBC, which it's just too far for me to go to, but hopefully somebody that I've worked with has gone there, you know, and learns the new cameras. And then I try to go into the camera rental places and do some testing and practice and try things out. But it's really tough. It's crazy. Things change so fast and so radically that, you know, what you learned and what you were trying to do 2 years ago has changed so much. I mean, the Red camera is an example. The first movie I did on a Red 1 with the original sensor, it was a crappy looking thing. It was really hard to work with. Color, skin tones were terrible. 2 years later, they did not even upgrades to the camera, but to the firmware. And I got into doing my color session, and it completely changed. The image completely changed. It was way better. Still wasn't great, but it was way better. A year later, they came out with their MX sensor, and it went, you know, much better. And now they have the Dragon and the Helium and all these other things, which for me, it's a lot of it is the K chase, 8Ks versus 4Ks or whatever, which is not necessary in my mind. Unfortunately, people are pushing it like consumer vendors, Sony and Panasonic and all of them, who want to sell you televisions at home. So every year they have to come out with something to give you a reason to buy a new television. And then Netflix jumps on the wagon and say, oh, we won't accept anything. You can't even use the Alexa on Netflix anymore. It has to be 4K. So, I mean, it's crazy. But how do you keep up with it? You just struggle. Read magazines, American Cinematographer, British Cinematographer, and the International Cinematographer Guild have a lot of information about that as things come out every month. But it's tough. Somebody else had a question, I saw.
Earlier you mentioned something about crystals in cameras, and I understand that that's to do with the composition of the camera and stuff, but I just thought you might expand on that a little bit, just on the varying crystals within cameras and how that affects things.
Well, the crystals, that actually was a film cameras that controls the speed of the pull down. He had it was set for 25 frame, and we were set for 24. We were shooting 24 with HMIs. So the crystal it was crystal controlled. That's just what controls the speed of the motor. But it hadn't been shifted properly to 24 frames. Same thing can happen here, but the way they make these displays on cameras, like one thing that's great about the Alexa versus some of the other cameras, the menu is very simple, and it shows you the very important information right to begin with, right here on the screen. So it's kind of hard to go wrong with at least your frames per second, your shutter angle, your ASA setting, and your white balance. And again, white balance, so I mentioned I go back to about RAW. If you're shooting RAW, it's more like shooting camera negative. You have a lot more range recorded, your latitude. And you're not baking in or building in the ASA rating or the white balance, where on film you are. So if you shoot RAW, even if you're setting at, let's say, 800 ASA here, an example I had was I shot a film in New Mexico, and second unit went out and shot some helicopter car chase stuff, and it was overexposed by 2 stops, I think, and it was in the bright desert sun. So we were shooting raw. So when I went to the transfer stage, even before we got to the DI, I said, guys, can you de-Bayer it? And the de-Bayer, people are, I don't know how familiar you are, but these cameras have a monochrome chip that has a Bayer pattern filter in front of it that splits it into the 3 colors of RGB, which lowers the sensitivity and the resolution, but it gives you the color imaging. Let me see, where was I thinking? So it's calling, when you take the raw image, there's no color information in a raw image. It has to be de-Bayered to get you to your final image, which shows up like that. If you look at a raw image, it's just like almost indecipherable. But if you're shooting raw, you can change your ASA setting when you do the de-Bayering. So even though the camera was set at 800 and was overexposed by 2 stops, I had them de-Bayer it at 200, which effectively put in 2 ND filters into it, like a 0.6, and it brought the exposure way down without having to crush it in the post stage. It sacrificed a little bit on the highlights, but it really helped with making the final image match and be usable. Same thing with the color temperature. If we're set at 3200, yes, you can tweak it and move it in post, but if you're shooting raw, you can shift it to 5600 or to 7000 or to 2000, anywhere you want in the post process. So it's a great help. And raw files are just a lot bigger, so they cost more.
Can I come in? Do you need a bit of time to progress your light?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm aware that. So this is a masterclass, right?
I'm running out of time.
Yeah, I'm on it. This is the masterclass. That means it's basically digital no mercy. I mean, no mercy. So the information that's being said and the jargon that's being used, actually, for those that are coming new into the game, there is no way out of it. You've got to learn this stuff. The cinematographer's job is to understand the light coming into the lens, in fact, light in the air before it even gets to a lens, right the way through to light emanating from a screen or whatever. And there's been a push in the last few years, as we've changed from film to digital, to enter an entirely different language of behavior. But it does come down to a set of very, very, very simple things, actually, because all cameras have got a stop-start, they've got an off-on, they've got lenses have an iris, and so on and so forth. So for the people that are very new to this game, it's important to go to your university courses and maybe do an MA in cinematography and all the rest of it. And this is the dangerous thing for anybody from a university to be saying, which is basically you can learn one hell of a lot in the first week of a real shoot, maybe a little bit more than several years at university. I mean, that's very dangerous for me to say and go on tape with, but I'm saying it. But maybe the thing is to get on those courses, but also get out there and get working all the time, never not be working. But is there any? I'm buying time here. Is there any of the jargon, the language that's used that anybody wants to know what it means? And it's no disgrace not to know that CTO means color temperature orange, that a Bayer color filter was invented for film by a guy called Mr. Bayer. There are simple truths behind all of this stuff. Is there any particular jargon or information anybody needs to know that we could possibly answer? We've got some eminent British Society of Cinematographers, members of this audience that could answer those whilst we buy it. No? Okay, we're cool. Great. Masterclass. Pile ahead. No mercy. Oh, we have a question. Let's see if we can find a person to answer it too.
I think it would be good if Roberto or someone else talks about LUTs.
Ah. Well, whilst he's standing at the back, just to say a simple thing, a lookup table. So you record, when you record in RAW, you record the raw data. Everything you see and everything you do is metadata, meaning what you see on the screen is not the truth. The truth lies in the data. So an LUT, a lookup table, can be applied to the outgoing signal from a camera to the monitor to show you that what you would get were you to apply a set of settings in post-production to bake in that look later on. Where is he? He's busy. Would you like to talk about lookup tables, Angus? So Angus is a BSc and he's going to talk about lookup tables. That's all right.
Look, where should we start? So we're actually looking at a lookup table now on the screen. A lookup table. When we look at the log C image, and possibly our camera assistant can put the log C image on the monitor, just briefly, perhaps.
So we're going to try to show you a lookup table being applied.
So this is what more or less the camera is sort of recording in its way. It shows it lacks contrast. Yeah, basically this is the image the camera is recording, and then there's a lookup table, basic lookup table that's just been applied called Rec 709, which is sort of a generic thing that gives it a bit more contrast, clips the highlights, clips the shadows, and puts it into a sort of more viewable space. One can create lookup tables, you can personalize them and add them later to, oh God, I wasn't prepared for this quite. There we go, there's a person who's going to answer it.
One thing great that you're looking at here, which can be done, if you can put the waveform back up there, because, as I said, this is an OLED monitor, which has, it's an organic LED is what it stands for, light emitting diode. You can't really trust exactly the levels there, but by looking at the waveform, it shows you that you can judge, because that has nothing to do with the LEDs. You can judge where your clipping is and where you're in the basement, so where you're going to be black. Can we put up a false color on this? Will it show up here? And on log, go on log, not on 709. So log, even here on this, it does help a bit. You can see where there's more detail being recorded, so you know that that is going to be on your, I won't say negative, I'll say your file. There is more detail there. Switch back to 709 for a second. So 709, I mean, you see it's still there, but it's not quite as informational. So you have that, and then if you look at, does false color show up? Is it not set on the?
It's on the Odyssey over there.
Oh, if you can put one of the user buttons and do it so monitor out gives you false color?
Yeah, that's rec out, so I can swap it.
Oh, okay. But these are things that you know, if you don't have a proper DIT or whatever with you, use your false color there and your waveform monitor. False color, there's a whole chart of what the colors mean. Basically, I think I said a little bit earlier, but basically green is what a proper 18% green, 18% gray at proper exposure would read. Pink is what's considered proper for the average Caucasian skin tone. You have to then judge by your talent, what you're looking at, your actors, where you really want it to lie. Purple is pretty close to no detail. And then there's varying stages in between. Yellow is almost clipping, red is clipping white. Where you have no detail where it's red, there's no detail there. Are we on 709 or log C right now? Okay, let's go to log C. So you get more, shows up more detail. It doesn't clip quite as far in the, let's see how that looks. Let's lose the false color now. No, just the one, let me just see the one gel. What is that? Is that 9 or a 6 on there? That's 0.6. Let's go with that, that's fine. Yeah. If you can just clean it up would be great.
Okay, so I'm doing that because you can see the lamp was burning out really bad to camera without the gel. And in order to make it more palatable so it's not quite so hot and not have to go in on a window later, because if you see the false color and it shows you there's red, that means even a window won't give you detail. It's gone. So by putting a gel on the inside, it's going to take a little bit of light off of this guy here, but the back is open, so these people still keep their light on them, and it just mitigates it a little bit for the camera, so it doesn't burn out quite so much.
Can I ask you a pertinent question at the moment? I hope it's pertinent. Personal. No, pertinent. Okay, so if you were shooting an HDR shoot right now...
If I was shooting...
An HDR shoot,
yes.
What amendments would you make to the lighting?
If I was doing an HDR shoot right now, I would have an HDR monitor. And without an HDR monitor, you really can't tell what the difference is going to be because it just gives you... HDR is high dynamic range, not to be confused with the HDR system that's built into the RED cameras, which gives you 2 different exposures at 2 different shutter speeds. It's basically a whole system with greater range, so you now have, instead of 12 or 14 stops in your display, you actually get the full 14 stops in your display as opposed to only 8 or 10 or whatever it happens to be at. I would just be a little bit more loose with the highlights and the shadow area. It just gives you, it expands it. So if you see an HDR versus an SDR monitor next to each other, the HDR gives you just a little more detail in the highlights and a little more detail in the shadow that you can play with. That's recorded and it's usable on the display. Because even if you have it on your raw file, it doesn't go out on a standard monitor.
So maybe a more cautious attitude to lighting and highlights?
With HDR? No, less cautious. Less cautious. HDR gives you more, it means that you have more to actually put on the screen. You can control that in your post work, you don't have to show it all, but at least the range that you see and that the camera captures in RAW, you actually can then display. And HDR is coming, slowly. Okay, let's see let's just try, let me see if you frame up, you've got frame up there. Let's push into number 1. And are we still at a 2.8 1/3, or what was the stop? 2.8 1/3? Okay.
Standing by on the flags. We're standing by.
So the green screen's not perfect. I'm not going for that today. It's just to give you an idea of what you could do if you wanted to. You could have anything back there. It could be the Eiffel Tower if you wanted. The cross marks, they're hash marks references. So if it's not a flat wall back there that you're putting in, if it's something with a depth, at least it shows you some parallax shift that the visual effects people can relate to. So otherwise they're trying to move an image with no relation to the space, to the parallax space, the depth. So this gives you that range there. So let's just try a pull out. Well, actually, yeah, as camera pulls out, let's have the actors in the, but wait for the camera to move. We'll do dolly first and then action on the actors. So let's try, and Amy and Michael, if you could just chat or something. Amy, you can come around a little bit. There, you can start off there looking at Michael and talking to him or something. Walk up to him on Dolly, let's go back to number 1, sorry. On Dolly, you can walk over there and you guys can talk to each other. Then they'll come in and you can take it from there, improv. All right? Well, we won't do the sun yet. Let's just do this move first and then we'll do.
Are you bothered about that? Can we do something about that, please?
The scene through there?
Take behind
No, I think I was asking about the key with the green here, seeing it through this glass. I think it's great. If a VFX supervisor would look at it and say, can you do that, then we do it. But usually they can do something, they can pull a mat through that, and then you still get all this image. It's nice. It adds to the, but it's great. See, now my gaffer is watching and paying attention and asked me something like that, which is really important because I didn't even look at that. So that's the kind of thing where you want people who are proactive, who are concerned, and who know what it is about to pay attention and give you that feedback. Okay, let's ready for a dolly move. You want to call it? Okay, so now if we can just stop for 1 second, see positions. Let's pull your chair. I'm going to move your chair a little bit. Just back like that. So, and don't lean in too far, blocking him. And if you can come around a little bit. Oh, okay. This gel. Yeah, why don't you come around that way a little bit. If we can trim the gel here so it doesn't go quite back so far.
Jeff? Colin?
Or, you know, I'm not going to worry about it right now. We'll leave it. It'll be okay. Let me do this. There. Yeah, I'll just do that. Yeah, that'll work. For now, it's, you know, I'm not going to be too finicky here. But normally, those are the things I'm tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, finding and trying to perfect things, and at least as far as I can to my level. Okay, let's, and we're at number 3? I mean number 2? Okay, good, let's try, now we're back here. Now let's try a rehearsal with the sun rising on my cue. And ready, 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, so it's got to be a lot slower. Because you see there the size of the lens on the lamp, or the open face of it, it's a very small area, so the reveal is very quick. If we had a big I-10 or a 20K or something with a bigger lens, it's much easier to do that slow reveal and get it feel more real. But let's try one more time. Go half that speed. And action. And you can refer to the sunrise too, actors, if you want to do something as you're feeling the light come up. Okay, so now one thing that bothers me is the shadow on his face. So I'm just going to do a little adjustment there. So it's not quite as harsh. Let's change the color temperature of the camera to, for there, that's going to be, go to 4,000. I think you're at 3,200 now. Okay, and let's add another layer of full CTO to both lamps. Just want to make the sunrise a little warmer, a little hotter, because we're working against tungsten, which tends to be on that warm side anyhow. So in the meantime, let's do some camera and thespian rehearsals. So you can rehearse with all that even while they're still doing the yelling and the flag. It's okay. Yeah, let's start like that.
Okay, so on action, that's your cue. Izzy and Romeo, you'll get a cue from Roberto, okay? Ready? Camera ready for rehearsal. Roberto?
Ready? Yep.
Here we go for rehearsal. Action.
And action. And now will be the sunrise and blah, blah, blah. Somebody's going to get up and go in. Now the two, Amy and Michael on the right, you're going to go inside and get something. As if you're getting another round of tea or something. Great, okay. All right, let's just put a bottomer here. Just a soft bottomer, just to slow this down in here. Perfect, yeah, yeah, great. Yeah, that's good. When you come out, it's good to push the door as far open as you can. I know it swings back a little bit. And then this. And electric, if we can get just one little repositioning on this hanging China hat in here. Soft. Do you have like a diffusion? Like a silk or something like that would be better? Well, actually, that would be great if that's in there, and they can go in and get it and come back out with it. Yeah, great. Sometimes the AD is your best friend, and sometimes they're not. But it's a collaborative field. It's a collaborative effort. On the best films that I've worked on, you get great ideas from everybody. I mean, if sometimes, you know, I use it's a cliche, but sometimes it's the craft service person is watching and they'll say, you know, if you tried that, it might be really cool. And you go to the director and you say, you know, I just was told an idea, and I try to, you know, give credit where it's due. To the craft, he said, you know, why don't you try that? And maybe it's a good idea. I think I agree. It could be really cool. Let's try it. Sometimes magic just comes from that. It's not just the single vision always. Sometimes it is, and sometimes you don't want to suggest anything because you can get your head chewed off, but it's good to listen to people and get ideas, because I believe no single vision is perfect. If I can just get a hand with this lamp here, the one thing I want to just shift, just rotate this, bring it forward so it's a little bit out more. And then we could try one last thing before we go, is starting at number 2 and doing a push-in instead of a pull-out, just to see what that looks like. Yeah, that's better on the lamp there. If it swings out a little more. There you go. A little more? Okay, good. As long as the door can still close. And they can still walk past it or under it. Just watch don't want to hit your head on the lamp when you come through. Can that go up a little higher? The whole thing? Yeah, just a little bit. So you either want always to have a 4-step ladder or a tall grip or electric with you who can do all those things without having to get the ladder. We always have like a 6'8" person on the crew. Great. Okay, let's try one. Let's try, yeah, we'll try it from number 2 to number 1 this time, the push in instead of the pull back, and see how that is. And we'll do the, let's see, the chop on this that's pretty good. Nice, that's a good height on there. Let's try with the slow sunrise. And actors, feel free to comment on, oh, it's finally, the sun's finally up or something, a reason to go get the tea, and that just, or you can look and see it and maybe shield your eye for a second, whatever, just so it's not just two independent things. Okay. Ready. But they should still be, the two actors on the left should still be in the other room to begin with. Yeah, back to one, the action stays the same, just the dolly's going to move in reverse. Yeah. Okay, and I'll also call the sun. And hopefully I'll get it right. So dolly, we'll do 2 positions. Stop there on the dolly. Okay. Second actors will come in. And as they come in and start to sit down, then push into the rest of it. And I'll start pushing in. Okay, and sunrise. Okay, don't clip her on the left. You're losing the girl on the left. Keep panning left. There you go. Pull back a little bit. Yeah, so it's not going to work as good this way. We also lose we don't see the relation of the sun on the set or anything. So we'll start in here and do the original move, okay? All right, let's try one. And if anybody sees anything egregiously bad in the image or something that bothers them, please speak up, because I like to hear everybody's opinions. Until it becomes too many opinions. Yes? Yeah, I want to see it. Oh yeah, no, it's good. It's a practical.
Roberto,
yes?
just ask basically the action coming back in with the tray.
Yeah.
Will we they go out?
Just go out and get the tray and bring it back in. Yeah, yeah. As soon as you start to feel the sunrise, you start to see it, let's go get the tea. It's time for tea. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to shoot this?
Let's shoot it now. Oftentimes you'll hear on the set these days, well, it's digital, let's just shoot the rehearsal. Well, it's not a rehearsal anymore. And then it's the first take. And usually if the director insists on it, you have to do it. A lot of times the actors are just chomping at the bit. They go, let's just shoot the rehearsal, let's just shoot the rehearsal. I'd say 95% of the time, my experience, it was a rehearsal. And it's going to get tossed out. They'll never use it anyhow. But sometimes you have to just, okay, let's just do it. But you can make a note to the script person, it's a rehearsal, don't use this, because there's things that you still have to be fixing, just to get you off the hook at the end. Okay, it's a disclaimer. No, you have to have that, yeah.
Action.
And action. Sunrise. Now let's do a slow push back in as they start to break the frame. Come on, back in, push in, slowly. but don't go past a 4 frame. I'll tell you when to stop. Keep pushing. And stop there. And Amy, just try to find your light a little more when you find your last position. No, I think you have to come forward a little maybe into this. Yeah, a little more here. That doesn't move, but see if that's better. Yeah. Okay. Cut. All right. So you'll notice that I do like shadows. I do like hard light. I think that if everything is shadowless, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like life. And I don't mind even multiple shadows sometimes, because I know I've walked around in various places, like my house and other places, where the sun bounces off of walls, comes in through a separate window, not as hard, but more, or not as bright, but still a hard light comes in. And I can have like 3 different shadows in a room coming off of different sources. I use my judgment of what I think looks good and what is believable and what feels right. But to try to eliminate all shadows and have people always perfectly lit and always standing in the right space, you've got to sort of feel it and feel what's right for the scene you're shooting and what looks good for the actors and what looks right for the image. Yeah.
So yesterday there was a predominance of thinking around lighting for actors to go anywhere they wanted, and you've just used the term, can you find your light? So can you speak about that issue?
Yeah, I mean, there are different situations where, I mean, I've worked on plenty of films and shoots where the actors are going to be improvising and moving around, and you really light a space, and they do what they will, and you find them, and you do what you will, and there you tend to light a little broader, have a little more light sources, maybe a little less shadow area, and hopefully astute actors, good actors, generally tend to find their light without having to hit a specific mark. It's just, you know, if you put your weight on your left foot, you get the light coming from here. If you put your weight on your right foot, you don't. So if they just are able to feel it, it's not really giving them hard marks, but they can help you with that. There's other times where if you're doing a film noir, you've got a hard shaft coming in a specific place. Everything's dark except for this one place. If the actor doesn't get into that place where you want them to, or just their hand come into that light, in The Godfather, standing there, you just see the hand on the table. If his hand was in an area where there's no shadow, then you've totally lost the feeling there. So it really depends on the scene and the feeling and how the director wants to work too. It's all variable. Everything changes every day, and you wake up every day and you come into the set and you might have talked about things the day before and planned it out, and it's a new scene, and you get there and there's a whole shift. Either they got new pages, the director decides to rewrite it on set, or the actors go in, and this has happened many times on sets I've been on, where you do a take and the actors, or you see them talking, they go talk to the director and they go, this doesn't feel right to me, I don't want to do that, and they discover a whole new path or a whole new piece of dialogue or whatever, and you have to react to that in real time, you know, as quickly as you can. But it's a living organism. Great, okay. Let's go back to before sunrise. I think we're a little bit off in the timing between the two. It felt like that one came up before this one did. Oh, okay. Anything's possible. So let's see, in the open frame, let's keep her in there. How are you feeling on the wheels there? Is that feeling good? Good? For slow, precise moves and for fast dolly moves, especially push-ins and things, gear heads are better than fluid heads, because when you come to an abrupt stop or an abrupt start, the camera doesn't, by centrifugal force, doesn't push forward or backwards. You can lock it better and get a much smoother move, and it's more precise for very slow moves like this. So it's good if you're going to be an operator to have practice on wheels as well as handheld and everything else. Okay, ready.
Here we go, right. Take and quiet everywhere. Turn over. Take two in on. So you ready now? Okay.
And And action. Sunrise. Got to be quicker than that. Not faster, but sooner. So I do this one, let's cut. This one shadow is bothering me a bit, so maybe I can get so you're not quite as, if I do that, that might help there, because you had a pretty hard shadow across your face. The sunrise has to not be faster, but when I say sunrise, it's got to reveal sooner. Oh, you can't, okay. So my crew member just told me you have a very big lag on the monitor from what he's doing, from what he's seeing on there. You'll notice also when you do the slate, you hear the sound, then you see the picture. There's always a delay. So focus pullers have a problem. All sorts of problems if you're trying to pull off a monitor, because the actor will move, they've already moved by the time you see it on the monitor. So you have to watch, don't even watch the monitor. You should, that's why I thought if you can have an eye line to each other and see the movement, because it's going to throw you off every time. Okay, let's try one more. And can we have and action? Have the dolly move on and.
On end?
Yes.
Okay, so
Goes ready and action. Dolly starts on and. Right, okay. Actor start on action.
So you ready to go on the hand, not on the action? Right. Turn over.
And you guys can refer to the dining al fresco, because you're out on the front porch.
And action.
Action. And sunrise. And now slow push back into the third position. Great, and cut?
Thank you, everybody.
Good, thank you. It was very nice. In a perfect world, I would have the sunrise, the sunlights on cranks or stands that can just slowly also then raise the light up a little bit. But a way you can do this is, you know, from my original way that I thought about doing this was actually the sun and using a big 12 by or 12 by 20 solid to put the scene into shade and then lower it or tilt it to let the sun actually hit it, and then you get the natural movement and speed of the sun shifting in the sky. Because at sunrise, it tends to go pretty quickly up, so the shadows would move. But I think that's pretty good. Are we good? 15 minutes. Oh my God.
Questions? Should we do it
Let's. Does anybody want to see something different on the moves? Do you want to try something different? Let me think. It looked pretty good. I don't know what we could do differently other than. Let's try, why don't you go to 3200 ASA. No, not color temperature. Okay, and let's stop down 2 stops. Okay, and now we're still on Rec 709 to the monitors?
Yeah, so log C.
Log C to there and Rec 709, okay. So I don't know if we get to do anything with this later on, but this is just trying, pushing the ASA and stopping down. Normally I would, you can actually see, if you were standing here, now you can see a lot of noise in the shadow area and in the hard areas here because of that forced ASA. But it's just to see what the difference is. Actually, you know what? Let's take 2 minutes. We have ND filters. Oh, we don't have the matte box on. Okay. Normally, if we had a matte box that was the right size, I would put an N6 in instead of stopping down 2 stops, so I keep the same depth of field. But we'll do it this way because it's just an approximation. And then after this, we'll just see if more questions. Okay? Reset the sun. Ready. Sure, yeah. And you can write on the slate 3200 ASA. Even though the script supervisor should be taking that note down, it's always good to have it on the slate because there's sometimes things fall through the cracks.
Okay, here we go. Turn over. And action.
Action. Sunrise. And push back in slowly. Keep pushing. We'll go in a little tighter this time. Keep pushing until he sits down. Okay, that's a good stop point. Good. They look like they're enjoying themselves almost. All right, cut. So if you were here, you could see there's a lot more noise here. You can go the other way with it. You can set this at 400. I think I had a stop and a half there of room, so you could set it at 640 maybe. No, 400 you could probably go to and get away with it. And then look at the differences in post. It's always good to test that stuff if you get a chance. Shoot test using different ASAs with highlights and lowlights, and then go into a color session somewhere that you can do and look at the difference that it gives you so you know truly informed what those differences are with the burnouts and the shadow burials and all that. So I hope that was something good. I think we're done with camera and lights. Is everybody good? Some questions?
Yeah, so just to start the questions off, what we'll do, if you don't mind, Roberto, is that when we get to the very end of this, we'll turn all the lights out and we'll play back the last tape so that we can see the projected version. But so I was asked to ask a question of you, which was about the issue of workflow, and especially if you're traveling around different locations and different cities and different post-production houses that understand different parts of that workflow. But also added to that question, given you made a comment, I believe, I was assured you made this comment, so I'll challenge you on it for that person, which is that it's not about the camera you use, it's about how you handle the data.
So I'll start with that last one because I don't remember the first one. It's not the camera, it's how you handle the data. It's a combination. Different cameras have different codecs. Red has theirs, Canon has theirs, Alexa, Arri has theirs, Panasonic has theirs. And it kind of works in combination with the post-production place, because I've found that if you're doing your dailies at a post facility that is using a base light to do your dailies, or a Poggle, and then you go into post, you've got all your dailies done, then you go into your final DI and they're working on a resolve, it reads differently, it translates differently. and you're going to have to not start over again, but you have to do a lot of work to get it to be exactly the other way, the way you had it originally. Unless you're working with the ACES workflow system, which is a newer thing which is coming into use a lot, which is the Academy Color Encoding System, which gives you from camera to through the editing suite to the post, it gives you the same look that you put into the camera. It can always be screwed with, they can always mess it up if they want to, but at least it has a digital footprint or a fingerprint that goes into the metadata that keeps the image the same all the way down. But yeah, I mean, I've been on originally with the red, part of the problem was they had their red 3D files and a lot of the post houses couldn't handle them. So they were translating them, or whatever the word is, to DNX files, or DPX files. The DPX file, and that happened also with visual effects a lot, they take it and they turn it into DPX files. Well, the DPX file has a very small color bit and latitude. So once it's turned into a DPX, you can't move it around very much. So part of the problem on the early red stuff was that if people didn't have the R3D system in their workflow, you're stuck with a DPX image, which you can't really color or move around the way you'd want it to. So now I think most systems are pretty compatible, and I think pretty much everybody can work with all of them. So it's still best to know what machinery they're going to be doing the post on, but it's pretty much everything goes now through the RAW or the ProRes files natively the way they are.
Can I just? Sure. I'd just like to add to that Jeff Boyle is Skyping in from Holland to do an ACES 2 workflow at 12:30, if you want to plug into that and understand what that system is.
If I can add with that, that is definitely something worth learning and hearing about and seeing firsthand. And it's a shame Jeff couldn't be here now, because last year, if anybody was here when I did this, Jeff was doing a live grade for me using, I think he was on DaVinci Resolve. So he was able to do, as I asked for, live LUT while we were shooting. It would have been a great thing to have here to go a step further, but it also takes more time in the demonstration and everything. But it's all worth knowing everything you can. And it's like film school and film 101, the line, crossing the line, all the rules. It's good to know the rules, and then you can decide when to break them.
So one other question before I hand it right back to the floor is, with the Revenant, the claim was natural light, which in a sense it was, but also there was an extreme 18-week post-production.
15, I think.
No, I don't want to contradict you.
You were there too when he said, was it 18?
Yeah, it was 18.
18. I keep saying 15, I'm giving him a break.
Okay, so do you want to just talk about the idea of natural light and the idea of power windows and all that stuff?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk, and Chivo blessed me to say all this because we had discussions about this. And they did a demo at the International Cinematography Summit with Steve Scott, who was the final colorist, who's a brilliant guy. He did Finding Neverland with me, and he came out of being a VFX and flame artist. And he can do stuff in the DI room that, he's a wizard. So there was Steve Scott, Chivo, and the VFX supervisor, whose name, unfortunately, I don't remember. They showed us clips from the Revenant, and then they showed us stills and moving images from the DI suite. And almost every frame in that film had 15 to 30 power windows moving on every frame. So basically, yes, they shot it all in natural light. It wasn't always the right natural light, but it was natural light. They shot as much as they could with the sun at the right height, and end of day, beginning of day in Ushuaia and up in northern Canada to keep the low horizon of the sun. But they went in and relit and repainted, in a sense, every single frame. Faces, take this side down, put this into shadow, accentuate this side, make the background darker. The shot where they're standing there and the avalanche happens, they set off the avalanche, but it was so overexposed and everything, you couldn't really read it properly. They brought all that down. There was a lot of post work done on, and yes, it's done in concert It was planned. They knew they were going to have to do that, but it was a collaborative effort between 3 major departments on that. And VFX showing were shots that seem seamless as if they're a single shot, were blended shots from 3 or 4, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 different shots that were beautifully married. But it was done, and shot on different days, which is also partly why they have to do some relighting and repainting, because the sunlight doesn't always match atmospheric haze or whatever it is. And it's a trend in filmmaking, using the new technology and the tools to your best advantage. And just that's why if you know more about it, you can take advantage of it. And hopefully the production will give you 18 weeks of post in a DI suite at $1,500 an hour. I don't know if they spent how many millions of dollars on the DI, which is unheard of. And the most I've ever had was 10 days on anything. But it's a different type of movie, different budget.
So can we take a couple of pertinent questions from listen to me. Have we got another mic that's just around, rather than handing this one? They're all pertinent. So a mic is coming to you.
Is it on? Sorry, what was the question? Yeah.
Hello. I've got a question regarding negative fill, or using flags. I've got the feeling in the last 4 years people use less light, order more textiles to, shape light. Do you feel that's something you do as well, or is it something you come across more yourself?
I think I've always used both. I use the lights where I need them, and I do like to use fabric to shape, either negative fill, or I tend to use a lot of bounce, and I like unbleached muslin. I'm not really a big fan of using an ultra bounce direct or white poly or any of that, because I find that the sheen that it gives on skin tones, it feels too white. It doesn't feel like the skin. So I'll use, unbleached muslins. I'll use black silks for eye lights, things like that. But I don't think I've changed that much between the digital and shooting on film. But still using both using both grip and electric to shape the light. Next, somebody? I saw in the middle there.
How does the setup that you've just done compare to when you did it on location for the Paperboy? You kind of mentioned that you could use the actual sun for the sunrise aspect of it. Is that how you did it on the Paperboy? And then also, how did you then deal with the kind of general ambient light of shooting presumably outside and making that appear like it was the night, the darker aspect at the beginning of the shot?
Yeah, on the Paperboy, we shot it probably at, I don't know, we say 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that. It was in New Orleans. It was August. It was hot. It was bright. It was sweaty. But it was a front porch that was covered, so I didn't have to worry about the top light. I had 2 12 by 20 solids on the front lawn, sort of in a bit of a book cover shape. They weren't straight flat across. They were a little bit angled in, like that. And on cue, when the actors went inside, the door closed, I had the front light on the porch, stayed on. It was exposed properly for that to look like night. So it was underexposed probably 2 stops or whatever, 2.5 stops. And then on cue, the 12 by 20s were on a pivot in the middle, the horizontal middle. So they would go like that on together, letting the light in. So it wasn't as hard of a light coming in as here, reading, but it was more a brightening, overall brightening and bounce lighting up from the floor and everything. So but it had a great feel. I mean, it felt like, because it wasn't supposed to be a direct sunrise in that, it was supposed to be a time change from night to day in real time. So it was like brightening to full daylight.
So how long was that shot overall, if it was meant to appear like real time?
Probably from them sitting and talking and then going inside and then and coming back out, it was probably 15 or 20-second shot. The actual change in light was probably 4 seconds, 3 seconds, no, 4 seconds, like that. It was exaggerated a bit to, to feel like an effect, but happening live in camera.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Pass the mic. Yeah, that's quickly.
Did you say this will be the last one?
No, we'll let him ask one too. I'll just be really quick on my answer this time. Okay. Short question. Yes.
You chose to stop at what, 2.8 1/3 or something like that. It seems quite wide for a shot when you're tracking in, maybe making things difficult a little bit for your focus puller. Is there a particular sort of stop you like to shoot at for certain things?
284 is kind of my native stop. It's a wide lens. It's anamorphic, yes, but it's a, what is this, a 40? So it's
that was
equivalent.
going to be my other question, is are you shooting anamorphic?
Yeah,
On
it's an anamorphic lens. It's the equivalent of a 20 mil in spherical, so it's got pretty good depth of field. One last question.
You talk about like the challenges you come across and the problems and everything, but do you actually see them as problems, or do you like it when your skills are put to the test as opposed to an easy setup?
It's semantics. Yeah, they are problems. They can be problems. They can be really difficult issues, but challenge. If you get up every day and you know already what you're doing, you never get challenged, you get bored and you get complacent, and I think the work suffers. It's great to get stomach aches and headaches and freak out and go, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but actually do it. It's a challenge. That's why I think sometimes I'm surprised how people can work on like a long TV series that's on stage, on set, where nothing really changes, and it's all this. I would get so terribly bored that I would probably get fired for falling asleep in the corner. But yeah, no, problems, issues, challenges. It's interchangeable. Thank you, everybody, really. And of course, thank Grip Electric and our actors and our wonderful first AD. Without a first AD, nothing would ever get done.
So what we're going to do when I stop speaking is that the lights are going to go down fast, and we're going to play back the last clip that was, the last take that was shot. And then when it finishes, we're going to give Roberto another big clap. But meanwhile, next up is 12:30 is an ACES 2 workshop. At 2 o'clock is the lighting case studies with Chris Menges. At 1600, 4 o'clock, there's Women in Cinematography. And then most importantly, at 17:30, 5:30, Roberto's going to take apart Miles Ahead with, it's a great movie, and I hope you'd come along for that. But so let's just see what we just did in complete darkness, so that we can see, pick a monitor or a screen to look at, and you're ready to go, right?
Action. Actually, the timing on take 3 was better, but.
Do come back for some of those sessions, and especially Roberto's at 5:30.